this one's interesting because it's sort of a mix between an ollie and a boneless. You're actually taking the foot off and banging it, but you're popping it with your back foot, sort of like an ollie. And you do kind of catch it with your front foot, but you level it out with your leg. It does look pretty cool too, especially if you can get it to pop over things. Most of the tricks in the back foot, you know, you step your foot off.
All right. Much respect to Mike V and Tony Hawk, of course, but I wanted to talk about the no comply because I don't ever hear anybody say this. But so the no comply was a trick in the late 80s. The big trick in skateboarding was ollieing, if you could ollie or not. Kind of like how kickflips are nowadays lately. You know, everybody's like, can you do a kickflip? Back in the late 80s, it was, can you do an ollie? And a lot of people couldn't ollie yet at the time. So, like, a lot of these tricks came around, like the no comply, when people were trying to ollie. That's kind of how the trick was invented. Same with, like, bonelesses and, like, early grabs and stuff like that. So, after the 80s and the early 90s, when tech skating progressed, you know, the street skaters at the time or whoever, like, they all kind of ruled out that no complies and bonelesses and early grabs were lame in skateboarding and that you shouldn't do them, which is why they were phased out in the early 90s. But I really like that trick. It's definitely a really cool trick, especially the way he's doing it there, where he's not doing like a shove it or a body varial with it or whatever, like the 180 version. No complies are rad, don't get me wrong. I'm glad they came back, and I'm glad skateboarding's not so you have to do this or that or look a certain way nowadays, because that's what kind of made skateboarding suck in the early, late 90s. I mean, that went on for a long time. I mean, street skating's been big in skating for how long now, you know? And finally, you know, transitions came back lately, but yeah, just a little my take on the no comply and stuff like that. So yeah, it's one of those tricks where, like, if you couldn't ollie and stuff back then, you'd no comply, like no complying up a curb or whatever to get over it or whatever. But yeah, that's why you won't see it no comply in, like, you know, during the World Industry era, like Blind or Plan B. You don't see a no comply in the Plan B video and then Questionable and stuff like that. That's why. It's still a rad trick. I personally love bonelesses. Like, bonelesses are rad and they're not that easy. If you're doing them, like, over a hip in transition or, like, on vert or something, it looks so rad. Especially, like, Lance Mountain has the best frontside boneless I've ever seen. I mean, Mike V practically, you know, I don't think he invented the no comply, but he's definitely one of the people who did them in videos back then. But because I remember early 80s or late 80s street skating was not developed hardly at all, and like people were just trying to like ollie at the time, so they made these tricks up or whatever. But yeah, just my take on the no comply.